Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. And Philippe, I know that you always like to point it out that we're now past the fall equinox.
That's right, we are, absolutely.
And you must be very, very excited to have marked this occasion.
I mean, I as you know, I live in Montreal, and we've had a spectacular September so far this month. It's a bit rainy today, but I don't know. Fall for me is just the perfect season. I'm done with hot weather. School's back, which I love. Politics is back, which I also love. And so yeah, I feel like in full bloom. Plus, hockey is starting again. So everything is just peachy right now. Not as peachy for all politicians, of course. We'll get to that. But I don't know, personally, for me, fall is the best season. I live for it. The only sad thing about fall is the way it ends. Just like life. So anyway.
Oh, wow. Okay, getting deep early on in the podcast today.
That's right. Okay. How are you, Eric?
So
how are you doing?
I agree. I love fall. Fall is my favorite season. So I'm very happy. I fall into fall every year. And so, yes, looking forward to it. And, of course, the fact that we get so much new political developments happening.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been having that happening over the last little while. We're actually in the midst of an election campaign in Newfoundland and Labrador. Apparently, there's no polls still yet, so we have really nothing to talk about. We've got some pretty interesting municipal races happening in Calgary, and Edmonton, Montreal, Quebec City, other places. So all of that is getting going. So that's always great to see. I don't know where to start today. I'm struggling with it, but I want to start with this, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I want to start with some of these leadership review numbers. Because we've been talking a lot about Pierre Poilievre's leadership review in January. And how this is really one of the big events, maybe after the budget, that is circled on the calendar. It's something that we're thinking about when we look at whatever Pierre Poilievre is doing, how much of it is geared towards that leadership review, how much is geared towards just his own numbers, his own attempt to try to improve the position of the Conservative Party, which I think the two are linked. And then we've been having some provincial results that I wouldn't say they're for leaders that are as well ensconced within their party as Pierre Poilievre. But some numbers that I think should make Pierre Poilievre wonder how much of a bead he might have on his own membership. So we talked about last week, Bonnie Crombie in the Ontario Liberal Party, 57%. She wanted to stay on, it seems at first, not going to work. She stepped down, or at least she said she's resigning. She's still interim leader or whatever until her replacement is named. And then over the last few days, we had two results for two other opposition leaders, and these are official opposition leaders. Marit Stiles in Ontario got 68%, and John Rustad in BC, the Conservative Party leader, got 70%. In both cases, those leaders say they're staying on.
Yeah.
What is the number? You remember Tom Mulcair in that debate? What's your number, Justin? Well, Philippe, what's your number?
Context is everything here. Like in general, I think there's a line around the 80% mark. That if you get 80%, I think it's easy to talk yourself into staying. But obviously, if you expect 95 and you get 81, it's disappointing. I really am not sure what to expect for Poilievre Leadership Review. It will depend on how it goes this fall. We saw the numbers from the Angus Reid Institute and other pollsters. Like, it seems like the voter base of the Conservatives is still well behind Poilievre. Like, it was 84% among Conservatives in the Angus Reid Institute poll that had a favorable opinion of Pierre Poilievre to this day. And so this is a good result. If he had 84 in the leadership review, and we know it's not the same people voting, but I think it would be reasonable. But after seeing these results, I mean, if he gets a 70, can he stay on? Well, we'll see with those examples. I mean, Marit Stiles 68, when I saw that number this weekend, my first reaction, well, okay, she's cooked. She had 18% of the vote, kept most of their incumbents in the Ontario election, but 68 is way too low. But Eric, where do you see your number? I mean, I think the number is 80, but I guess I could be wrong because these two leaders appear to think that what they got was enough. What about you? What do you think?
Well, we always say that number is 67, right? That's what Joe Clark said wasn't good enough when he stepped down as Conservative PC leader in 1983. What was Bernard Landry? What did he? Wasn't it like 76?
It was 78 or 76. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had 80% in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there does seem to be this expectation that if you don't get 2/3 support, that's not good enough, and you should probably go. But there is this little room in between that 2/3 to, as you said, somewhere around 80. I think what the leaders that have gotten over 80, they're generally fine and they stay on. But those leaders that are in the 70s, it's often a very dangerous territory to be in. We saw this with a number of conservative leaders in Alberta. Alison Redford had something in the 70s, Ed Stelmach, I think, at some point. You see other leaders. There was Ryan Miley in Saskatchewan, the NDP leader. He got in the 70s. There's other ones. When you're in that zone, it's not usually enough to resign on the day of the leadership review, but it does suggest that there's enough discontent within the party that it is hard to stay on. I was looking at some of the ones for the New Democrats and across the country, provincial parties. Andrew Horwath, her worst result that she ever got was 76%, which I think was after the 2012 election or the 2011 election. So this was an election where they finished third. She got, I think, 78% after the 2014 election. So you're seeing that there's been at least some issues there with Andrew Horwath, who, when she was Ontario leader, she was able to hold on. But there's always these questions about whether she was the leader that would get the NDP to where they needed to be.
Yeah.
So when I see Stiles at 68, there's not a lot of leaders who get 68 and they stay on indefinitely or until the next election. The caucus got up behind her, which suggests, at least for now, they're willing to stick with her. But I mean, the next election campaign in Ontario is probably 2029. And can you survive for this long if you're still in the teens in the polls, if you're still having some doubts about whether you can, push the party into a winning position? And then with John Rustad in British Columbia, the BC Conservatives.
Yeah, this one is puzzling, though. I mean, I know there's infighting over there, but, I mean, John Rustad came so close to becoming Premier of BC last fall. And the infighting, I think, is far more intense than the other examples that we've seen. Oh, well, the OLP maybe a little bit, but the infighting is intense over there. For someone who came so close, I mean, Marit Stiles did not come close at all, right? 18% of the vote. She did not come close, and to think that she could take that next step to surpass the Ontario Liberals and then to surpass the PC in an eventual Ontario election, that's a lot of wishful thinking. Whereas I could have seen, last fall, we discussed it, Eric, we could see M. Rustad becoming Premier at some point, but it looks like his leadership is on not very solid footing right now. Jeez. Yeah.
You said context. And I think context is probably the most important thing, because you look at someone like Marit Stiles. What does she have? Apparently not that much infighting. There hasn't been any caucus members that have left the party. You haven't really seen that much public discontent expressed. And she's not doing well in the polls. And the last election result was disappointing, right? Yes, they finished the official opposition, but it was because of an efficient vote, which you can't always rely on. And that efficiency of vote actually is a bit of a ceiling as well, right? Because give the NDP another 5-10 points in the polls, they probably only gain a couple seats just because they're so far back in so many other ridings. Then you look at John Rustad doing well in the polls. The last one we saw actually had the Conservatives ahead. Their last election result was a good result for a party that pretty much didn't exist. But he's got huge caucus discontent. He's had a few MLAs that have left the party. Just yesterday, he kicked out Eleanor Sturko, which was one of his high-profile floor crossers before the last provincial election. And he seems to be in some trouble. I think that's what Pierre Poilievre doesn't have that these two have. First of all, he might end up getting 92% on the leadership review, and it doesn't matter. But his caucus seems to be behind him. And while the polls aren't, they're not terrific for the Conservatives, they're still very much competitive. And the last election result, while it didn't match what they had hoped to have at the beginning of 2025, was still a decent result, right? So he has those three things that I think are working in his favor. So the leadership review vote, even if he did get in the 70s, maybe he'd be able to stay on because the caucus would be behind him, the polls aren't so bad, and the last result wasn't resignable. Wasn't a resignable offense.
Yeah.
So I think it does. You need some of these things. If you have a very low leadership review vote, but the party's behind you, like in terms of your caucus, you're probably fine. But I do wonder what's going to happen, especially with that BC Conservative result, because that party does seem like it's been. Yeah. You know, on The Simpsons, when Bart Simpson is doing, it's an old episode, but he's got a derby. What's it called? A street racer car that he builds with his father, and he's going down the hill, and it just falls apart, and it eventually hits him in the face, and all this. You kind of feel that way with the Conservatives. It was just cobbled together, and it was thrown down the hill, and it did okay at first, but there was a lot of elements in this party that was going to fall apart, and we're starting to see that now. I think that might be behind this result for Rustad.
Yeah, considering all the pieces that made the BC Conservatives. I mean, the folding of the BC Liberals into the BC Uniteds. For those who remember, right, it was a year ago, and you put that together, it's a big tent. But at some point, a big tent, that means you stretch the fabric. At some point, it snaps, and I think this is what we're seeing. I mean, there's nothing unites a big tent party, like winning or like being competitive. We saw, as you said, the polls in BC still show a very competitive race, and the NDP has been in power for some time now, so there's an opening there. But if they self-destruct before that happens, I mean, Monsieur Eby won a majority by 1 seat. He needs the entirety of his caucus to be united in a confidence vote. But now the opposition is split every which way. So Monsieur Eby must be sighing a big sigh of relief right now, looking at the opposition cracking like this. So, yeah.
Well, if a lot of this is based on how you're doing in the polls, you look at Rustad's personal numbers, not very good, so maybe that might be driving some of this discontent. Marit Stiles' NDP numbers, not very good, that might be driving some of the discontent. So if we're talking about Pierre Poilievre, how is he doing right now? We've got some polls out over the last week. I mean, that is still the question. Are these kinds of numbers good enough for him?
Well, his personal numbers vary from firm to firm, and that is interesting. I mean, they're not good. Let's just play with that. The best numbers, the personal numbers from Mr. Poilievre, is from Abacus data, and he's on the even mark. We had numbers earlier this summer from Léger, it was negative. From Angus Reid, it has been consistently negative since Pierre Poilievre became Conservative leader, but he reached a peak, the 58% unfavorable from Angus Reid earlier in September. That was the highest since Angus Reid polls on Poilievre. So it doesn't seem to go in the right direction. But what do you do if your party really, really likes you, but you cannot pull anything away from other parties, right? Because this is what we see from Mr. Poilievre. He doesn't get any favorables from the NDP voters, Bloc voters, and very little from Liberal voters. I guess you wait for your opponent to crumble. Maybe you wait for Mr. Carney to make mistakes, and then you jump on it. It's just that it's really rare that we elect people that have a negative rating. They can win by default, but I remember, I know it's been a long time, but when Stephen Harper really never had strong favorables in any pollsters, but when he did win, he was above water in some polls, right? So this is what we have to keep an eye on. And also, perhaps Conservative members who will vote in January. Will it matter to them what Canadians at large think of Mr. Poilievre? Or will they just say, we love this guy, we don't care what NDP voters think? It depends how insular that party is becoming. I'm not sure what the answer, but again, still competitive. I have an average of 39% for the Conservatives. In any regular election, 39%, you win, but 2025 was not regular. So
no, but it could be the new normal, right? Which means that
for a little while
everything kind of changes. So the numbers we got this week, we had a new Abacus poll, had a 40% positive rating for Poilievre, 41% negative. We saw the new Nanos that was out this morning still has a 22-point gap between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre on the preferred prime minister. 51% for Carney to 29% for Poilievre. As I've said a couple times, to me, that is the most important number that we get regularly, because I think that kind of gap is not going to work out for Pierre Poilievre in an election campaign. Because you see in the polls, yes, Abacus has a tie, 40-40. Nanos now has a 5-point gap for the Liberals, 41 to 36. Ecos came out, had an 8-point lead for the Liberals. But if let's say an election gets kicked off after the budget, and most polls have, the Conservatives and Liberals within a few points of each other.
Yeah.
If we still see a 20-plus point gap on the preferred prime minister question, that almost seems like a bigger problem, that eventually the party numbers will follow that pattern, right? So that, to me, is still the biggest challenge that Pierre Poilievre has, is to not just look better, but to look better in comparison to Mark Carney. It's something I keep on hitting on, and I don't hear enough people recognizing it. Yeah. But elections are still a choice. You have to choose between the different options. It's not just, is this guy any good or is this guy any bad? You gotta, is this any better? Is this person any better? And as long as Carney is seen better than Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney wins elections. I think that's really what it's going to come down to.
Those abacus numbers don't make me frown a little bit. The number has been stable for the Conservatives, around 40%. But we have seen in consecutive polls the Liberals drop 4 points and then gain 4 points and then lose 3 points again. I know noise is normal, but we're not used to... I mean, this is at the edge of the estimated margin of error. So lots of fluctuations. That tells me that the electorate really is not focused on any kind of horse race right now. But again, if you go with the approval, Abacus has a plus 18 for M. Carney and a minus 1 for M. Poilievre. If those numbers stay the same, I mean, the conservative brand we know is very strong. It would have to be incredibly strong to win 25 more seats, because this is what they would need, right?
There's one thing from the Abacus poll I think is worth kind of putting a pin in to watch, because we've seen a pretty consistent trend across different polls. Angus Reid Institute, Leger has shown it, now and Abacus has shown it, that the government approval has been ticking down, the government disapproval has been ticking up. Mark Carney's positive numbers ticking down, his negatives ticking up. This is the first poll we've seen since early summer from Abacus where there was a reversal in that trend. So the government approval actually went up a little bit, the disapproval went down, Carney's numbers got a little bit better. So is this one of those blips? And it just goes back to where it was before, when we get the next Abacus poll in a couple of weeks, or at this rate in the next couple of minutes. But that is something to see, because there has been this kind of narrative that the Liberal support and Carney support has been being sapped over the course of the summer. Is this just as I said, just a little blip, or is this actually the end of that pattern? And could we be in for a series of polls that show stability in the government support, right? Not all trends continue in the same direction forever.
Exactly. To make a little transition here, let me ask you a question, because you just mentioned if the budget doesn't pass this fall, like early November, right? What happens? We lose the House is not confident on the government, and then we go into an election. When was the last time we had an election during a party leadership race? I don't think it's happened, at least at the federal level. I don't think it's happened in my lifetime. And I'm saying this because the NDP leadership race is now well underway, with at least one candidate officially in. But can you remember, top of your head? I know you're the history major here, but it's been a while since that happened, right?
Federally, the last time this would have happened would have been the 1980 election.
Right, because
Pierre Trudeau had resigned, but the race hadn't technically started yet.
Yeah, that's right.
But there were some campaigns getting going. They were getting ready to start running. Wow. And in the end, they kind of convinced Trudeau to stay around for one more, which actually, that last term was the one that made Trudeau's kind of legacy, right? Most of the things that people remember Pierre Trudeau for happened in that 80 to 84 term.
That's right. For better or for worse. for better
Yeah,
or worse.
but if you look at the books that were written at the end of the 1970s about the Trudeau years, it's a lot about how lots of promise, but nothing much, didn't deliver, wasn't as much of an impactful prime minister. So anyway, it's just an interesting little historical asterisk that if that budget hadn't fallen in 1979, let's say instead Joe Clark had survived for one more year and it went down in 1980 and there was a 1981 election,
wow.
It's probably Donald MacDonald, who I think was the front runner, to replace Pierre Trudeau. And the early 80s are completely different. Anyway, just a little kind of thing there. So that might be the last time it happens. But maybe that's an argument for the fact that it won't have an election this year, is that parties in the midst of a leadership race tend not to commit seppuku and send themselves to the polls. We will use that as our transition here for that NDP leadership race. Nothing really new here. We knew Lewis was going to prepare to get in. He's now officially in. Heather McPherson has a special announcement on Sunday. Rachel Notley will be there. I saw that today.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's just for a special... Who knows what this special announcement is for? I mean, it could be about anything. I also noticed that it's taking place at the La Cité Francophonie or something like that in Edmonton.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Intéressant. I mean, she does speak some French, unlike Mr. Lewis. And for those who hear that...
Lewis did do a thing in French too. I think he might speak French as well.
Did he? Okay, because I didn't hear it. Well, it's news to me. Then good for him. But
he had a 30-second launch video in French.
Okay, well,
yeah,
good for him.
So we'll see.
we'll see. Not too many NDP members in Quebec, so short term it's not very consequential. But again, longer term, the NDP, it's. Their history in Quebec, outside of the Tom Mulcair and Jack Layton, of course, is not that bright. So,
Mm-hmm. But the fact that Rachel Notley is going to be at this launch kind of gives a tone to what kind of NDP candidate McPherson is going to be, and especially to what kind of NDP member she's going to appeal to.
Yep.
Whereas I saw Avi Lewis, one of his endorsers was Joel Hardin in Ottawa, the Ottawa Centre, former MPP. Yep. He ran federally, but that didn't work out. So you kind of see the battle lines being drawn a little bit here between these two. And I guess that's the real question, whether in the midst of a leadership race, the NDP would be willing to pull the plug on the Carney government. Maybe, you know what, some of those MPs might find that they're out campaigning on budget vote day and can't.
Too bad they can't be there. That's right. They can't be there.
Yeah. Why don't we move to some provincial stuff? What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Provincial stuff. Where do you want to start? We have a few numbers from throughout the country, right? Quebec, Manitoba, Nova Scotia. Where do you want to start?
Well, why don't we start with Quebec? It's the next, out of these where we got new numbers, the next election on the docket. Once again, how about some new polling numbers out of Newfoundland and Labrador?
I know, right? It would be nice, but money...
All right. Well, we got a new poll from Léger last week. Why don't you take us through it?
So 38% Parti Québécois. This is the third straight poll that has the PQ leading with 38%. So I think there's a consensus on where the Parti Québécois stands right now. In first place, almost 30 points ahead among francophones. The Quebec Liberals doing okay, not doing great, but doing okay if you compare to the last 5 years at 27. The CAQ got a break. We had two polls prior to Léger that put them at 11 and 12%. This is 16% for the CAQ. Still not great, but we'll see where the trend goes. Conservative 11, Québec Solidaire in complete disarray at 7%. This is half of what the party had in the previous election. We had another resignation from the CAQ caucus. Maïté Blanchette-Vézina, she's down to St. Lawrence. She was not part of the new cabinet, and she has lost confidence, and Monsieur Legault slams the door on the party. And now the CAQ is at 83 seats. So 20 more resignations, and they lose their majority. But no, Monsieur Legault was in Tout le monde en parle, the popular talk show on Radio-Canada on Sunday night, kind of laid out his plans for the next year. He's going to fight I don't want to call it the doctors' union, but le Collège des médecins, kind of a doctors' union. but just like poor numbers all around. Dissatisfaction is at 70% in Léger. This is the highest it's been since they track Monsieur Legault. So this is pretty much it. Not going well for the CEQ. 1 year to go till the campaign. I mean, 1 year from now, Eric, we'll be deep in a campaign. The election is scheduled for October 5th. What were your observations? Do you have anything to say about that Quebec poll, Eric?
I was curious to see the CQ at 16. Now, that is down for Léger, because I think the previous poll had him at 17.
Yeah.
So at least it's the same trend line. But I wonder how much of a life preserver this fact that it was 16 instead of 9 was for François Legault. Imagine it had been a 9. All right?
Yeah.
Just before, especially before he goes on Tout le monde en parle on the weekend. He's having a much worse week, and who knows if he survives it. 16 is obviously not good when you're the government. But I wonder if that, it's not 11, it's not 10, it's not 9. It's just a little dirty. It's still good. It's kind of what
reference.
It seems to be.
There you go.
Yeah, this is the second one. There's not really much new here. It's the ship is continuing to sink. Yeah. And some people are getting off the ship as it sinks. The captain is seemingly going down with the ship, at least at this stage. That's what it looks like. Yeah.
One more thing about that Quebec poll, sovereignty numbers, mostly unchanged. 56% against sovereignty, 33% for, 11% undecided. We know that historically most of those undecideds would go to the no side. So even though the Parti Québécois is comfortably ahead in first place, ahead among Francophone voters, even among Francophone voters, 55% against sovereignty after distribution of the undecided. So the Parti Québécois is going super well. Sovereignty has not moved. It hasn't gone down. It hasn't gone up. It's stable. We're heading into a very interesting election year in Quebec.
All right, let's take a look at just two provinces that incumbent governments still have a few years to go before the next election, seem to be in decent shape, not much to worry about for either of them. We got poll from Probe Research out in Manitoba, had 53% for the NDP, 34% for the PCs, 8% for the Liberals, so Wab Kinew still leading by a large amount. And in Nova Scotia, we got a poll from Abacus. The legislature just returned, which I think is what the timing was for this poll. 52% for the PCs, 23% for the NDP, 16% for the Liberals. Pretty much identical, with a little bit less Liberal support than what it was in the last election. And so these two governments seemingly in very good shape with popular premiers, and onwards for Wab Kinew and Tim Houston.
Wab Kinew is hitting the halfway mark this week in his first mandate, I believe. He was elected in late September, so halfway through a first mandate. These are really good numbers for the Manitoba Premier. And in Nova Scotia, well, when we looked at the federal results in Nova Scotia, outside of Quebec, Nova Scotia was the worst result for the Conservatives in English Canada. And yet we see the PCs comfortably ahead with over 50% support. So again, a decoupling between the federal and the provincial counterpart are interesting stuff.
It is actually, just when you mention that, when you think about it, Mark Carney, his Liberal Party, got a lot of support from people voting for Wab Kinew in Manitoba and Tim Houston in Nova Scotia. And probably Doug Ford in Ontario.
François Legault in
keep
Quebec.
Going down the list. François Legault in Quebec. Probably not as much crossover in British Columbia. Well, I guess with David Eby. But anyway, just lots of... That coalition is very multicolored. Because the Liberal Party is still struggling quite a bit. You got 8% Manitoba, 16% Nova Scotia. So the brand isn't helping out in some of those areas. But I don't know, maybe the Carney brand looks a little, for Nova Scotians, looks a little PC.
No doubt about that.
Okay, I think you said you had a quiz. And you asked our members on the Discord yesterday whether it should be an easy quiz or a tough quiz.
I mean, I think it's worth mentioning those numbers just before we get into this week's quiz. So yes, I did ask our members because they're very important and we love our members. So what should the difficulty be? Because a few weeks ago, the quiz, I wouldn't say it was too easy. It wasn't too easy, but you crushed it. You had a perfect score. And then the next week I was like, I'm going to get Eric. And it was a little too hard. And so I asked, what should the difficulty be? The first option was go easy on poor Eric, which had 1 vote so far.
Wasn't me.
Make it challenging but attainable, which got 2 votes. And then hard, we like to see or hear Eric sweat, got 13 votes. And so far, well, tied for the winner, very hard. He's a history major after all, so go hard on him. So a little quiz for you. Let's do this. I have 4 politicians here. I have 3 clues per. And so I'm going to read you the first clue. You have a free guess. If you get it, you get 3 points. Second clue, if you get it, you have 2 points. Third clue, if you get it, you have 1 point. And if you don't, well, it's 0. So you have a maximum of 12 points. But getting in on a first clue, I think, is a bit of a guess. So where should I put gold? I think gold should be 9 out of 12. Silver will be 8. Bronze will be 7. And below 7, Eric, you know what it means.
Shame.
That's right. So are you ready, my friend?
I am.
Okay.
Wait, one point of clarification.
Okay, go ahead.
Politicians. We're talking provincial, federal?
Everything.
Everything.
Well, okay. Well, not mayors. Yeah, provincial and federal.
Provincial and
fair?
federal. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. First person, number 1, Eric. This person served as a Liberal member of Parliament after first getting elected in the 1962 federal election. During his terms as MP, he won 2 Stanley Cups.
What?
You heard it right.
While he was an MP?
That is correct.
Oh, man, I feel like I should know this. Oh. Who was it? Oh, that rings a bell. 1962?
First elected in 1962. That's right.
Oh, man, I don't... I know who it is, but I can't think of it.
Well,
this is going to kill me. I don't know. It's not Tim Horton, is it?
It's not Tim Horton. But you get a free guess each time, so this is your free guess. Number 2 for 2 points. He was playing for the Maple Leafs during the Leafs 60s dynasty and ran as a Liberal in York West. At the time, that was a Tory stronghold. He was the first Liberal to win there since 1935.
I'm not going to get it because I can't remember his name. I know who it is, though. Oh, this is, I don't know. Is it like Red Fisher or something?
No, sorry.
Oh, I can't remember.
Number 3, he was re-elected in 63, beating a PC candidate and future disgraced NHL agent Alan Eagleson in York West. So there's a hockey element here. Can you get it for 1 point, Eric?
No, I can't. I can't remember it.
I wonder
give me
how
a
many
clue.
people...
Give me a clue for his name. I won't get any points at this stage, but give me a clue.
Okay, well, the thing is, his first name, there's also a nickname. His nickname is a color. He also played for the Detroit Red Wings before playing for the Maple Leafs. He won 8 Stanley Cups, which is the highest for any player who never played for the Montreal Canadiens, which I thought was a fun stat.
Oh, but, I don't remember. Who is it?
Red Kelly. Patrick
Red Kelly. That's why I said Red Fisher, I think.
You did have red there, but I couldn't. Okay, we start with a 0 here. Okay, but that was kind of tough. But,
I need to run the table now to get gold.
That blew me away, though. I mean, he ran for office while he was playing, and he was a good player too. And he has a statue in front of Maple Leaf Square, I think. So, all right, person number 2. First clue. This federal party leader and member of parliament was born in Duluth, Minnesota, to Canadian parents who moved back to Canada when he was a child. He also served in the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II.
In the Air Force?
That's right.
Okay.
This federal party leader and member of parliament was born in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay. So it has to be okay. So someone who has to be around probably in their 20s and the 40s. Mm-hmm. So if they became so probably talking about in the 60s or 70s. Okay. I'm just trying to think about who it could be. I'm betting it's one of the Socreds. Is it Patterson?
It is not Patterson. Clue number 2. His political career began early, as he supported the Social Credit Party of Alberta since its creation. In 1985, he became youth leader of the party. After working abroad in Africa, he returned to Canada and became leader of the Federal Social Credit. He was first elected to Parliament in 1962 in the riding of Red Deer, Alberta.
Okay, well, it's not Patterson, then it's got to be Robert Thompson.
And Robert N. Thompson is the answer, my friend. You got it. So
all right,
you get 2 points
off the map.
The third clue was divisions hurt the Socreds throughout the 60s, and citing lack of support from the Socreds, he crossed the floor to the PCs and successfully ran as Robert Stanfield's PC candidate in Red Deer. So Robert N. Thompson is the answer. You get 2 points. Okay, good for you. All right, third person. This political leader and Chief Justice grew up in Stephenville Crossings in western Newfoundland. He graduated with a law degree from Dalhousie Law School in Nova Scotia.
You said he was a federal... What was the beginning of this?
This political leader, I guess party leader, and Chief Justice grew up in Stephenville Crossing. Which I had to Google. Looks like it's a small town, but it looks beautiful out there.
So federal leader from Newfoundland.
No, I said political leader.
Right, okay, yeah. Well, I was going to say, sorry. I meant party leader from Newfoundland. Yeah. So it's not going to be federal, because I don't think there's been one.
Ever? Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. A Chief Justice. Who became a Chief Justice afterwards? Was it Clyde Wells? Was it?
And Clyde Wells is the answer. You get 3 points out of this. Wow. Let me give you the other clues just for fun and for our listeners to learn a little bit. At age 29, he entered the cabinet of Newfoundland Premier Joey Smallwood in 1966, getting elected to the Newfoundland and Labrador House of Assembly for the riding of Humber East. He was elected under the Liberal banner. And the third clue was, after retiring from politics and returning to private practice, he again returned to politics and became leader of the Newfoundland Liberals, becoming premier of the province in 1989. You would have gotten there. After his political career, he was appointed to the Newfoundland and Labrador Court of Appeal and became Chief Justice in 1999. Okay. So, Clyde Wells in 1 clue. Congratulations. So that's 3 points. So you have a total of 5. With
I need to get at least for 2 for a bronze, 3 for a silver.
Okay, all right. Fourth and last person here on my list. First clue, Eric. This provincial party leader was born and raised in Kitchener, Ontario. After studying at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana and Harvard Law School, he became a lawyer and returned home to begin his own practice. Before entering provincial politics, he served on the Kitchener City Council.
So he's a provincial leader from Kitchener, unless he went somewhere else. From Kitchener. And I went to Indiana and Harvard. Who is this? Not sure. I'm going to say John Robarts.
That is not correct. Okay, second clue, and if you get the second clue, you get a bronze. Okay, otherwise it's shame. In the 1950s...
Is it shame, though? I mean, we're all just having fun.
Second clue. In the 1955 Ontario general election, he ran as the Liberal candidate in Waterloo North, defeating the PC incumbent. And this despite the Leslie Frost PCs winning a landslide majority that year. 3 years later, in 1958, he won the Ontario Liberal leadership election. Became Ontario
we just
Liberal
did,
leader.
we just
in
talked about all the
1958.
Liberal leaders.
Well,
Waterloo North, 1958. Okay. Okay. We had done these before.
well, you see, there's a theme here. I did a Newfoundland guy because there's a Newfoundland election. Now I'm doing an OLP guy because, so there's a theme. There's a method to the madness.
Okay, wait. So 1958. Who would it have been then? So when we did it, who did I remember was... So Smith was in like the late 70s, early 80s. It was... I don't know if... Oh, was it Farquhar Oliver?
No, it was not.
Oh.
So, giving you the third clue here because you could be at the edge of bronze and shame.
Wood. It's a wood medal.
That's right. In the 1959 general election, Leslie Frost once again led the PCs to a landslide majority, but this person doubled the OLP caucus from 11 to 22 seats. In the 1963 Ontario election, he lost his own seat and resigned as party leader.
I don't know. Is it another Thompson?
Unfortunately not. It's another John, though.
It's
John
Wintermeyer?
Wintermeyer. That is correct. So you get 5, but
That was a tough one.
This was kind of tough, I have to say.
Well, no, that last one was tough because
yeah.
we
OLP
talked
leaders
about it on our special episode last week, how the OLP leaders didn't exactly make their mark in
that period,
political Canadian history at that point in that point in this cycle. So anyway, okay, that was good though. I enjoyed that.
Good job, my friend. Okay,
I'm really upset I didn't get Red Kelly. Now that I knew that when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, there was that guy who was like it. I should have just guessed Red Kelly. It sounds like an old-timey hockey player name. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, number of the week.
Your face says you're disappointed with yourself, but I have to tell you, I am proud of you. You did well. Okay,
well it's like golf. It's like golf. You're just trying to beat yourself, right?
That's right. Exactly. You're your own worst enemy. Listen, my number of the week, I pulled the little number. You mentioned Bernard Landry earlier. He had 76% in his leadership review after losing to Jean Charest in the leadership review, I think was an 03, right? And he himself judged this to be insufficient and he resigned. But the story went that evening, as he was laying on the couch with a drink, he regretted it. He was like, what have I done? Can I unresign? And he could not unresign. That 76% mark stayed with me. The sense that, if a quarter of your membership don't want you, you can say, okay, well, good luck without me. The PQ did not do well in the next few elections. Changing leaders is hard. Changing leaders is risky. It could basically not work. But Miss Stiles, I have to wait for one number-based argument for Miss Stiles to stay on because I haven't seen one. She had a really poor result in the election. They tanked everywhere outside of their established base. She had 18% of the vote, 500,000 votes away from the Liberals, and the Liberals just kicked their leader. For me, getting 68% in the leadership review is just insufficient, but I guess context means everything, and perhaps she wins the next Ontario election and makes us fools. So, but for me, that 75% should be like a benchmark.
My number is 9%.
Okay.
So 9% was this was in the, I think it was in the latest, yes, it was in the latest Abacus poll. 9% was the support for the NDP among 18 to 29-year-olds.
Ooh.
That is not a good result for the party. They do need to reconnect with younger voters. I looked at a few other surveys. Léger also had very small support for the NDP among younger voters. Ipsos did as well. So the NDP needs to be very competitive with younger voters. Younger voters do not come out in big numbers. That's always going to be a problem. But this is the kind of voter that the NDP should be able to appeal to. 9% is not going to cut it. So I think that is going to be the biggest challenge for the next leader of the party, is to reconnect with that more energetic, youthful, progressive base that they can always count on for volunteers and that kind of stuff. And I think that that number is shocking to me, that they're at that low support.
Yeah.
To think that, you're walking around in Canada, you see someone who is in their 20s, only 1 out of 10 of them, not even 1 out of 10 of them, was supporting the NDP. I don't know when the last time that would have been. It would have been a very long time ago. So that's, I think, a big problem for the party.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that'll be it for this week. And we did have our special episode last Friday. So if you missed that and you're not a member, you can join us at thenumberspod.ca. We had a little mini quiz on the OLP leadership. It was tough. And we had some questions from our members, which is always fun. So if you want to support us, go to thenumberspod.ca. If you already have, well, thanks very much. And Philippe, I hope you have a great week. We're not going to chat this week again. So hopefully the withdrawal symptoms won't be too tough.
That is right.
But I look forward to chatting with you again in 7 days.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Have a great week.